What if everything you've been taught about building wealth has been deliberately designed to keep you struggling? What if there's a single piece of knowledge so powerful, so transformative, that a select few have worked tirelessly to keep it hidden from the masses? I know that sounds dramatic, but stay with me until the end of this video, because what you're about to discover has the potential to completely rewire your relationship with money, abundance, and financial freedom. Now, let me ask you something personal. Has this ever happened to you? You wake up before dawn, push through exhausting days, sacrifice precious moments with the people you love, follow every piece of conventional financial advice you've ever heard, save diligently, cut expenses, invest wisely, and yet, month after month, year after year, you find yourself in the exact same financial position. The numbers in your bank account barely change. The debt feels like it's growing rather than shrinking. And that dream of true financial freedom, it keeps slipping further and further away, like trying to grasp water with your bare hands. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. You're not lazy. You're not incompetent. You're not doing anything wrong in the traditional sense. In fact, you're probably working harder than most people around you. So why does wealth seem to come so effortlessly to some while others, despite giving everything they have, remain trapped in an endless cycle of financial struggle? What you're about to discover might surprise you, because the answer has nothing to do with working harder, finding better investment strategies, or learning some secret stock market trick. The truth is far more profound and, frankly, far more liberating than anything you've been told. There exists a book, one single book, that contains knowledge so potent that financial elites have deliberately kept it from public consciousness for decades. Not because they're evil or malicious, but because they understand something fundamental. True wealth doesn't begin with external strategies, clever tactics, or even fortunate circumstances. It begins with something far deeper, a complete transformation in how your subconscious mind perceives, processes, and attracts money. Your subconscious mind is running the show right now, making approximately 95% of your daily decisions without you even realizing it. And if that subconscious programming is filled with limiting beliefs about money, beliefs you didn't even choose consciously, but absorbed from childhood, from society, from every authority figure who told you that money doesn't grow on trees, or that you have to work hard to earn every penny, then no amount of external effort will ever produce the results you're desperately seeking. What you're about to learn transcends traditional financial advice because it addresses the root cause of financial limitation, the invisible programming running beneath your conscious awareness. This isn't about positive thinking or repeating affirmations that feel hollow and fake. This is about genuine scientific reprogramming of the neural pathways and belief systems that have been unconsciously sabotaging your financial success your entire life. So the real question becomes, are you ready to discover what the financial elites already know? Are you prepared to learn the one book, the one system, the one transformative approach that can finally unlock the wealth that's been waiting for you all along? Because what comes next will challenge everything you thought you knew about money, success, and the possibility of genuine abundance. Because here's what most people don't understand, and what that mysterious book reveals with stunning clarity. True financial transformation has absolutely nothing to do with what you've been taught. It doesn't start with budgeting strategies, investment portfolios, or side hustles. It begins somewhere far more fundamental, somewhere most people never think to look, deep within your subconscious mind, in the hidden programming that's been quietly directing your financial reality since childhood. Let me share something that changed my entire perspective on this journey. I used to believe that wealth was the result of smart decisions, hard work, and maybe a little bit of luck. I followed every guru's advice, read countless books on financial success, attended expensive seminars, and implemented strategy after strategy. And you know what happened? Very little, sure. I'd see small improvements here and there, but nothing substantial, nothing that created the kind of transformation I was desperately seeking. It was exhausting, frustrating, and frankly, demoralizing. Then I discovered something that completely shattered my understanding of how money actually works. I learned about people like Maria, an ordinary single mother, working 2 jobs just to keep the lights on, who somehow managed to multiply her income 3-fold in less than 6 months. Not through a lottery win, not through some inheritance or lucky break, but through something far more profound. She reprogrammed her subconscious relationship with money. She didn't change what she was doing externally at first. She changed how she was being internally, and that inner transformation radiated outward, reshaping her entire financial reality in ways that seemed almost miraculous to everyone watching from the outside. If this resonates with you, and you want to keep diving deeper into how consciousness creates wealth, hit that subscribe button. I'm here exploring these principles that actually work at the subconscious level, and I'd love to have you on this journey with me. Or consider Carlos, an entrepreneur who had poured his heart, soul, and savings into 3 consecutive business ventures, each one ending in devastating failure. He was on the verge of giving up entirely, convinced that success simply wasn't meant for him, that some people were destined for wealth while others were doomed to struggle. But then he stumbled upon this hidden knowledge about subconscious programming and wealth manifestation. Within months of applying these principles, his 4th business didn't just survive. It thrived beyond his wildest expectations. The financial flow he'd been desperately chasing for years suddenly came naturally, effortlessly, as if invisible barriers had simply dissolved. And then there's Anna, who lived that suffocating month-to-month existence where every unexpected expense felt like a potential catastrophe. Credit card debt mounting, bills piling up, that constant knot of anxiety in her stomach every time she checked her bank account. Today, she lives with an economic freedom she genuinely never believed was possible for someone like her. Not because she won the lottery or married rich, but because she discovered how to reprogram the subconscious beliefs that had been keeping her trapped in scarcity. These aren't anomalies or special cases. They're not people with extraordinary talents, privileged backgrounds, or secret connections. They're ordinary individuals who discovered an extraordinary truth. Your external financial reality is a direct mirror, reflection of your internal subconscious programming. Change the programming, and the reality must change to match it. It's not magic. It's how consciousness and manifestation actually work when you understand the underlying mechanisms. The book that contains this transformative knowledge doesn't just tell you to think positive thoughts or repeat affirmations. It reveals the precise neurological and energetic patterns that govern wealth creation. And more importantly, it provides a systematic method for rewiring those patterns at the deepest levels of your being. This is about genuine transformation, not temporary motivation. This is about permanent reprogramming, not superficial mindset shifts that fade after a few days. Now, I want to go even deeper into what makes this approach so radically different from everything else you've tried. The hidden truth that most people never discover is that your conscious desires for wealth are constantly being sabotaged by subconscious beliefs you didn't even know you had. These beliefs were installed in your mind before you could think critically about them, before you had any choice in the matter. They came from parents who struggled financially, from teachers who reinforced the idea that money is scarce, from a society that glorifies struggle and associates wealth with greed or immorality. Your subconscious mind is like a powerful computer running programs in the background. And most of those programs regarding money were written by other people in other circumstances for other purposes entirely. They're not serving you, they're limiting you, constraining you, keeping you trapped in patterns that feel frustratingly unchangeable no matter how hard you consciously try to break free from them. Write in the comments if this resonates with your own experience. Just say, "This makes sense to me," so I know you're tracking with this revelation. What I'm about to share with you might sound strange at first, but I need you to hear this with an open mind because it completely transformed my understanding of wealth. Money has its own language. I don't mean this metaphorically or poetically. I mean it quite literally. Money operates according to specific universal laws, energetic patterns, and vibrational frequencies that most people never learn to speak or understand. And here's the fascinating part. Those who struggle most desperately for wealth are often the ones pushing it furthest away from themselves, simply because they're speaking the wrong language entirely. Think about it like this. Imagine trying to have a conversation with someone who only speaks French, but you're shouting at them louder and louder in English, convinced that if you just work harder at communicating, eventually they'll understand you. That's essentially what most people are doing with money. They're working harder, hustling more intensely, sacrificing more of their time and energy, all while speaking a language that money simply doesn't respond to. The desperation, the struggle, the fear-based effort, these frequencies actually repel abundance rather than attract it. This revelation didn't come from some modern self-help guru or motivational speaker. The origins of this knowledge trace back over a century to a man whose story reads almost like a legend. He was a prosperous businessman who had everything: wealth, status, influence, all the external markers of success. Then, in a devastating financial collapse, he lost it. All, completely wiped out. Everything he had built, every material possession, every financial security, gone in what seemed like an instant. Most people in his position would have simply tried to rebuild using the same strategies that brought them success the first time. But this man did something radically different. He recognized that losing everything was actually a gift in disguise, an opportunity to ask a question that most wealthy people never have the courage or humility to ask. What is wealth really? Not the surface-level mechanics of earning and investing, but the fundamental essence of prosperity itself. What makes money flow towards certain people and away from others? Why do some individuals seem to attract abundance effortlessly, while others work themselves into exhaustion with minimal results? So, he made a decision that most would consider extreme. He withdrew from society completely, entering 7 years of total isolation, dedicating himself entirely to understanding not just the patterns of money, but its energetic nature, its hidden laws, its essential character. He wasn't studying finance or economics in the traditional sense. He was studying consciousness, energy, universal principles that govern manifestation itself. He was decoding the hidden language that money speaks. During those 7 years, he documented everything he discovered. And what emerged from his isolation was a manuscript so revolutionary, so transformative, that when he finally shared it with a small circle of people, they experienced such profound shifts in their financial reality that they almost couldn't believe what was happening. These weren't people using new investment strategies or business tactics. They were people who had fundamentally reprogrammed their subconscious relationship with wealth, and their external circumstances were simply reorganizing themselves to match this new internal frequency. The most striking discovery this man made was that sustainable wealth, the kind that doesn't require constant struggle to maintain, the kind that flows naturally and abundantly, has almost nothing to do with what we've been taught. It's not about sacrifice, deprivation, or endless toil. Those approaches might generate some temporary results, but they're ultimately built on a foundation of scarcity consciousness that guarantees you'll always be fighting an uphill battle. Instead, true prosperity operates according to what he called the receptivity principle. Wealth flows most powerfully toward those who have learned to receive it, not toward those who are desperately chasing it. This might sound counterintuitive, especially in a culture that glorifies hustle and grind, but consider the paradox. The more frantically you pursue something, the more you're unconsciously declaring that you don't have it, that it's separate from you, that you're in a state of lack. And that energetic signature of lack is precisely what your subconscious mind then manifests as your lived reality. The manuscript revealed something that changed everything for those who applied it. That your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between what you consciously say you want and what you're unconsciously vibrating at. It only responds to your dominant energetic frequency, and if that frequency is rooted in struggle, scarcity, and desperation, then no amount of positive thinking or goal setting will override those deeper patterns. Now, I want to go even deeper into how these hidden laws actually operate in your daily life, because understanding the mechanism is what gives you the power to transform it. The book outlined specific patterns that wealthy individuals unconsciously embody, patterns that have nothing to do with their work ethic or intelligence, but everything to do with their subconscious programming around receiving, deserving, and allowing abundance to flow. Write in the comments, "I'm ready to reprogram," if you're starting to see how your own subconscious beliefs might have been blocking your financial breakthrough. The real question that consumed this businessman during his years of isolation wasn't how to get his fortune back. That would have been the obvious pursuit, the predictable path. Instead, he became obsessed with a far more profound mystery. Why do some people seem to magnetize wealth without apparent effort, while others work themselves to exhaustion their entire lives and barely survive? What invisible factor separates those who flow with abundance from those who constantly struggle against scarcity? What he uncovered was so shocking, so contrary to everything society teaches about money, that when he first shared his findings with a select group of influential individuals, they experienced transformations so dramatic that they made a collective decision to guard this knowledge carefully. Not out of malice or elitism, but because they understood that this information, in the wrong hands or without proper context, could be misunderstood or misused. These weren't people hoarding secrets for personal gain. They were people who recognized they had stumbled upon something genuinely revolutionary about how human consciousness interacts with material reality. The manuscript began circulating quietly among this inner circle, and the results were consistently extraordinary. People who had been moderately successful suddenly experienced exponential growth. Individuals who had struggled financially for decades found themselves in completely different circumstances within months. But here's what's crucial to understand. None of these transformations came from new business strategies, investment tips, or financial techniques. They came from dismantling a single devastating lie that had been embedded in their subconscious minds since childhood. If something clicked for you today, if you had one of those aha moments where things suddenly made sense, let me know by tapping that like button. It helps me understand what's landing with you and keeps this content reaching the people who need it most. This lie is so pervasive, so deeply woven into the fabric of our culture, that most people never even recognize it as a lie. They accept it as fundamental truth, as just the way reality works, and that acceptance becomes the invisible prison that keeps them locked in financial limitation for their entire lives. The lie is this: money is scarce, difficult to obtain, and requires constant sacrifice and struggle to achieve. You've heard it 1,000 times in 1,000 different variations. Money doesn't grow on trees. You have to work hard to earn a living. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. You can't have your cake and eat it too. These phrases aren't just casual observations about economics. They're programming statements that literally shape your subconscious beliefs about what's possible for you financially. Every time you heard an authority figure say these things, during your formative years, your young mind absorbed them as fundamental truths about reality. Your parents repeated them, not because they were trying to harm you, but because they had been programmed with the same beliefs by their parents. Your teachers reinforced them, society validated them at every turn. And slowly, without you even realizing what was happening, these statements became the invisible operating system through which you perceive and interact with money. Here's the devastating impact of this programming. When your subconscious mind believes that money is scarce and difficult to obtain, it automatically filters your perception of reality to confirm that belief. You literally stop seeing opportunities that are right in front of you because they don't match your internal programming. Your mind dismisses possibilities before they can even register consciously. You make decisions from a place of lack and limitation without even realizing you're doing it. And tragically, you work incredibly hard in ways that actually push abundance away from you, all while believing you're doing everything right. The businessman discovered that this scarcity programming operates like a self-fulfilling prophecy with mathematical precision. If you believe deep in your subconscious that wealth requires constant sacrifice and struggle, then your reality will consistently manifest experiences that confirm that belief. Not because the universe is punishing you, but because your subconscious mind is the primary creative force shaping your experience, and it's simply delivering exactly what you've programmed it to expect. But here's where the revelation becomes truly transformative. The manuscript didn't just expose this lie, it revealed the actual truth that wealthy individuals unconsciously know and operate from. Money isn't scarce at all. It's one of the most abundant resources in human civilization, constantly flowing, constantly circulating, constantly seeking places to land and multiply. The appearance of scarcity is an illusion created by subconscious programming, not an objective feature of reality itself. When you reprogram your subconscious to align with the truth of abundance rather than the lie of scarcity, your entire financial experience transforms, often rapidly and dramatically. Now, I want to go even deeper into how this programming actually works at the neurological level, because understanding the mechanism is what gives you the power to change it. Your subconscious mind operates primarily through patterns, associations, and emotional connections established early in life. These neural pathways become so automatic, so deeply ingrained, that they feel like unchangeable aspects of your personality rather than learned behaviors that can be reprogrammed. Write in the comments, "Abundance is truth," if you're beginning to recognize how scarcity programming has been shaping your financial reality. The manuscript revealed something that most people find almost impossible to believe when they first encounter it. Yet once you truly understand it, everything about your financial struggles suddenly makes perfect sense. Money, in its purest essence, isn't actually a limited resource that we must desperately compete for, like animals fighting over scraps. That's the illusion that scarcity programming creates. Money is fundamentally an expression of energy, a flow of value that moves through human civilization according to specific principles, naturally gravitating toward those who understand and align with its underlying laws. This isn't some abstract spiritual concept disconnected from reality. It's an observable pattern that plays out consistently across every economic system, every culture, every time period. The people who complain most loudly that money is hard to get, that wealth is impossible to achieve, that the system is rigged against them, these are precisely the individuals whose lived experience continues to Validate those beliefs day after day, year after year. And here's the uncomfortable truth. It's not because the universe is punishing them or because they're unlucky. It's because their subconscious programming is creating a self-fulfilling prophecy with ruthless precision. Think about this carefully. If your deepest subconscious belief is that money is scarce and difficult to obtain, your brain, which is fundamentally a pattern recognition and problem-solving machine, will automatically filter reality through that lens. You'll notice every piece of evidence that confirms scarcity while unconsciously dismissing or ignoring evidence of abundance. You'll make decisions that seem logical from within your program paradigm, but that actually perpetuate your financial limitation. You'll work incredibly hard, but your efforts will be misaligned with the actual flow of abundance, like rowing furiously upstream while wondering why you're not making progress. What the manuscript exposed with devastating clarity is that we've had the entire equation backwards our whole lives. We've been taught that the path to abundance looks like this: work tirelessly, sacrifice constantly, maybe someday in the distant future. If you're lucky and disciplined enough, you'll finally enjoy financial freedom. This is the paradigm virtually everyone operates from, and it's precisely why most people remain financially trapped despite their best efforts. They're following a map that leads nowhere because it's based on a fundamental misunderstanding of how prosperity actually manifests. The truth, the revelation that changed everything for those who applied it, is a complete inversion of this traditional paradigm. You don't have to work yourself into exhaustion first and then hope abundance eventually arrives as a reward for your suffering. Instead, you must first align yourself with the vibrational frequency of abundance. And when you do that, the work you engage in naturally generates prosperous results without the struggle, without the constant anxiety, without the feeling that you're pushing a boulder uphill every single day. This probably sounds counterintuitive, maybe even irresponsible or naive if you're hearing it for the first time. We've been so deeply conditioned to believe that struggle equals virtue, that suffering builds character, that anything worthwhile must be difficult. But consider this. Have you ever noticed that some people seem to generate wealth with a quality of ease and flow that feels almost unfair? They're not working harder than you. They're often working less. They're not smarter or more talented or better connected. Yet money seems to find them. Opportunities appear in their path. Their ventures succeed where others fail. The difference isn't in their external actions. It's in their internal frequency. They're operating from a subconscious foundation of abundance consciousness rather than scarcity consciousness. And that foundation changes absolutely everything. Their decisions flow from confidence rather than fear. Their efforts are aligned with natural currents of prosperity rather than fighting against them. They're not trying to force abundance into their lives through sheer willpower. They've become natural receivers of the abundance that's always flowing, always available, always seeking aligned channels through which to express itself. Now, I want to go even deeper into what this alignment actually means in practical terms, because this is where most people get confused. Aligning with abundance frequency isn't about when you're not, or denying financial challenges when they exist, or engaging in some kind of delusional positive thinking that ignores reality. That's not what the manuscript teaches at all. Real alignment happens at a much deeper level. It's about fundamentally reprogramming the subconscious beliefs, emotional patterns, and energetic signatures that have been unconsciously sabotaging your financial success your entire life. The journey from scarcity consciousness to abundance consciousness involves recognizing and releasing layers of programming that you didn't even know were running in the background of your mind. It requires bringing awareness to the automatic thoughts, the unconscious decisions, the subtle self-sabotage patterns that keep recreating the same financial limitations over and over again, regardless of how much external effort you apply. Put in the comments, I'm aligning with abundance, if this paradigm shift is beginning to click for you. The manuscript contains a story that perfectly illustrates this principle, and when I first read it, everything suddenly crystallized for me. There were two brothers, raised in the exact same household, by the same parents, in the same economic circumstances. They received identical education, had access to the same opportunities, lived in the same community. On paper, you would expect their financial outcomes to be relatively similar, maybe with some variation based on career choices or luck, but fundamentally comparable. Yet their financial realities became so diametrically opposed that it seemed like they were living in completely different universes. The first brother held firmly to the belief in scarcity. He operated from the deep conviction that money was hard to get, that life was a constant struggle, that financial security required endless vigilance and sacrifice. And his lived experience perfectly reflected these beliefs. He worked long hours, stressed constantly about bills, felt like he was always fighting to stay afloat. Money flowed toward him grudgingly, and when it did arrive, it seemed to disappear almost immediately, consumed by unexpected expenses or financial emergencies that appeared with frustrating regularity. His entire relationship with money was characterized by tension, anxiety, and the exhausting feeling of swimming against a relentless current. The second brother, through what seemed like pure chance, but was probably something deeper, discovered the principles contained in the manuscript. He began applying them, reprogramming his subconscious beliefs about money, aligning himself with abundance consciousness rather than scarcity consciousness. And what happened next appeared almost magical to everyone observing from the outside. Money began flowing toward him with an ease and naturalness that seemed to defy logic. Opportunities materialized seemingly out of nowhere. His ventures succeeded where conventional wisdom suggested they should fail. He worked fewer hours than his brother, experienced less stress, and yet accumulated wealth at a rate that left people baffled and sometimes even resentful. Here's what's crucial to understand. The difference between these two brothers had nothing to do with their external actions, their intelligence, their work ethic, or their moral character. The fundamental difference existed in the energetic field from which they operated. The first brother's scarcity consciousness created a vibrational frequency that repelled abundance, making every financial success feel like a battle won through sheer force of will. The second brother's abundance consciousness created a vibrational frequency that attracted prosperity naturally, making financial success feel like the path of least resistance. This story reveals something profound about the hidden mechanics of wealth creation that most people never discover. At its most essential level, money isn't actually a physical object, despite the fact that we can touch it, count it, and hold it in our hands. Money is fundamentally an energetic pattern, a representation of value that responds with mathematical precision to your deepest mental and emotional patterns. This isn't mysticism or wishful thinking. It's observable reality once you know what to look for. Your thoughts about money are not passive observations floating harmlessly through your mind. They are tangible creative forces with real energetic signatures that literally sculpt and shape your financial reality. Every time you think a thought about money, you're emitting a specific frequency into the field of consciousness that surrounds you, and that field responds by organizing circumstances, opportunities, and experiences that match your dominant frequency. When you think, "I never have enough money," you're not describing your reality. You're actively creating it, programming it, commanding it into existence through the creative power of your consciousness. This revelation has extraordinary implications that most people never consider. It means that your financial situation isn't primarily determined by external factors like the economy, your job market, or even your education level. Those factors certainly play a role, but they're secondary influences operating on the surface. The primary determinant of your financial reality is the energetic pattern you're consistently broadcasting through your subconscious beliefs, habitual thoughts, and emotional responses to money. Now, I want to go even deeper into how this energetic pattern actually operates in your daily life, because once you understand the mechanism, you gain the power to consciously reprogram it. Your subconscious mind is constantly scanning your environment for evidence that confirms your existing beliefs about money. If you believe money is scarce, your mind will notice every example of financial struggle while filtering out or minimizing evidence of abundance. This selective attention then reinforces the original belief, creating a closed loop that perpetuates itself automatically unless you consciously interrupt it. The transformation begins when you recognize that you're not a passive victim of circumstances, but an active creator whose internal programming is generating external results with perfect consistency. Your current financial reality, whatever it looks like, is a precise mirror reflection of your subconscious programming about money, value, worthiness, and abundance. Drop a comment saying, "I create my reality," if you're starting to grasp how your own thoughts might have been programming your financial experience all along. The manuscript guides you through a powerful mental exercise that reveals the precise vibrational signature you've been unconsciously broadcasting about money your entire life. I want you to try this right. Now, even as you're watching this video, close your eyes for just a moment if you're in a safe place to do so, and visualize money as you've always understood it. What images appear in your mind? Are you seeing bills and coins, numbers on a screen, a bank statement? Now pay very close attention to the emotions that accompany these images. Really feel into them without judgment. For most people, what emerges is uncomfortable. There's anxiety lurking just beneath the surface, a subtle tension in the chest or stomach, worry about whether there's enough, whether it will last, whether unexpected expenses will destroy whatever security exists. There's often this pervasive feeling that it's never quite enough, that no matter how much you have, it could disappear at any moment. Some people feel guilt or shame associated with money, others feel anger or resentment. These aren't just random emotional reactions, they're precise vibrational codes that your consciousness is constantly emitting into what the manuscript calls the unified field of consciousness. And here's where things get really interesting. This field of consciousness that surrounds you isn't passive or neutral. It's responsive, intelligent, creative. It receives the vibrational signature you're broadcasting and responds by organizing circumstances, opportunities, and experiences that match exactly with that frequency. If your dominant emotional pattern around money is anxiety and scarcity, the field responds by manifesting situations that give you more reasons to feel anxious and scarce, not because it's punishing you, but because it's fulfilling its function, to mirror back to you the patterns you're projecting into it. This is where most people get stuck in what seems like an inescapable loop. Their financial circumstances generate feelings of anxiety and lack. Those feelings reinforce beliefs about scarcity. Those beliefs then create thoughts that emit even stronger scarcity frequencies. And those frequencies manifest as more challenging financial circumstances, which generate more anxiety, and the cycle perpetuates itself with devastating consistency. Breaking free from this loop requires understanding something that most people never grasp. Your thoughts about money aren't simply abstract ideas floating harmlessly through your mental space. Your thoughts are tangible creative forces with real energetic impact on your material reality. This sounds almost too simple to be true, yet it's the foundational principle that separates those who achieve lasting wealth from those who struggle perpetually. Every single time you think, "I can't afford this," You're not making a neutral observation about your current financial state. You're issuing a command to your subconscious mind and to the creative field of consciousness. You're actively programming your reality to match that statement. You're declaring scarcity, and the universe, which doesn't argue with you, doesn't question you, doesn't tell you you're wrong, simply says, yes, you're right, and delivers experiences that prove your statement true. The same process happens with every thought pattern you habitually repeat. Money is so hard to come by. I never seem to get ahead. Rich people are greedy. I'm just not good with money. Each of these statements is a creative declaration that shapes your subconscious programming and determines what you'll perceive, what opportunities you'll notice, what decisions you'll make, and ultimately what results you'll experience. Most people spend their entire lives issuing unconscious commands that program limitation and scarcity into their reality, then wonder why wealth continues to elude them despite their best conscious efforts. The transformation begins the moment you truly understand that you have the power to consciously reprogram this system. You're not helpless or at the mercy of circumstances beyond your control. You're operating a sophisticated creative mechanism that's been running on autopilot with faulty programming. And once you recognize that, you can begin the process of deliberately installing new programs that align with abundance rather than scarcity. Now, I want to go even deeper into the specific mechanics of this reprogramming process, because intellectual understanding alone isn't enough. You can know these principles conceptually and still remain trapped in old patterns if you don't apply the actual techniques that rewire your subconscious at the deepest levels. The manuscript doesn't just explain why your programming creates your reality. It provides a systematic method for changing that programming, step by step, thought by thought, belief by belief, until your internal frequency matches the external abundance you desire. Write, "My thoughts create wealth," in the comments if you're recognizing how your own mental patterns have been shaping your financial experience. What I'm about to share might sound like something out of a science fiction novel, but it's actually grounded in principles that quantum physics has been validating for decades. This isn't naive, positive thinking or some fluffy self-help concept disconnected from reality. This is quantum science applied directly to your financial life, and understanding it changes everything about how you approach wealth creation. When you modify the vibrational pattern of your thoughts and emotions related to money, you're not just changing your perspective or your mood, you're literally altering the field of possibilities that will manifest in your physical experience. Quantum mechanics has demonstrated something that sounds impossible to our everyday logic. The observer affects the observed. Your consciousness isn't separate from the reality you're experiencing. It's actively participating in creating that reality at the most fundamental level. Every person walking this planet is manifesting their financial reality in perfect accordance with their internal programming, whether they realize it or not. Whether they believe it or not, the process is happening constantly, automatically, with mathematical precision. The only question is whether you're doing it consciously and deliberately, or unconsciously and by default. Most people are operating on default settings, running programs installed by their parents, their culture, their early experiences with money, without ever questioning whether those programs serve their highest good. They're creating their financial reality through unconscious patterns, then feeling confused and frustrated when that reality doesn't match their conscious desires. But once you understand that you're always creating through your vibrational frequency, you gain the power to do it consciously, to deliberately tune yourself to the frequency of abundance rather than remaining stuck on the frequency of scarcity. The manuscript uses an analogy that makes this concept beautifully clear. Think of money as a radio station broadcasting on a specific frequency. Actually, think of wealth and abundance as thousands of different stations, all broadcasting simultaneously, all available to you right now in this very moment. These frequencies of prosperity are always transmitting, always available, always present in the field of possibilities surrounding you. The question isn't whether abundance exists. It absolutely does, in infinite supply. The question is whether your personal receiver is tuned to the right station. Imagine you desperately want to listen to a station broadcasting on 103.7 FM. You want it so badly that you're thinking about it constantly, visualizing it, working hard to hear it. But your radio dial is currently set to 80.5 FM. You can want that other station with all your heart. You can work tirelessly trying to hear it. You can believe you deserve to hear it. You can follow every piece of advice about how to access it, but none of that matters. It is physically impossible for you to receive the transmission occurring on 103.7 FM while your dial remains tuned to 80.5 FM. The laws of physics simply don't allow it. This is exactly what's happening with money in your life right now. If your personal energetic field, the combined frequency of your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and subconscious programming is tuned to the frequency of never enough, then you literally cannot receive the abundance transmissions that are available at every moment. It doesn't matter how much you consciously want wealth. It doesn't matter how hard you work. It doesn't matter how many financial strategies you try. As long as your internal dial remains stuck on the scarcity frequency, abundance will continue to elude you, not because you're being punished or because you don't deserve it, but simply because you're tuned to the wrong station. The truly liberating aspect of this understanding is that changing your financial reality doesn't require changing your external circumstances first. You don't need to wait for a better job, a lucky break, or perfect economic conditions. You need to adjust your internal dial to recalibrate the frequency you're broadcasting and receiving. When you shift your vibrational pattern from scarcity to abundance, your external circumstances must reorganize themselves to match that new frequency. It's not optional, it's how the system works. Now, I want to go even deeper into what it actually means to tune your dial to the abundance frequency, because this is where most people get confused. They think it means pretending everything is fine when it's not, or lying to themselves about their current financial situation, or engaging in some kind of delusional fantasy thinking. That's not what this is about at all. Genuine frequency adjustment happens at a much deeper level than conscious pretending. It involves systematically identifying and reprogramming the subconscious beliefs that are keeping your dial stuck on the wrong station, then installing new patterns that naturally align you with the frequencies of prosperity, possibility, and flow. The manuscript provides specific techniques for this recalibration process, methods that work directly with your nervous system, your neural pathways, and your energetic field to create lasting transformation rather than temporary motivation. This is about rewiring yourself at the identity level, becoming someone who naturally resonates with abundance rather than someone who has to constantly fight against their own programming. Leave a comment saying, "I'm tuning to abundance," if this radio analogy is helping you understand why your financial situation has remained stuck despite your efforts. The most remarkable aspect of what the manuscript teaches is how quickly this transformation can actually occur. We've been conditioned to believe that profound personal change requires years of therapy, decades of discipline, or some kind of heroic commitment that most people simply don't have the bandwidth for. But what the book reveals is that when you understand the underlying mechanism of how your subconscious creates your financial reality, the recalibration process can begin to manifest tangible results in days, sometimes even hours. This isn't because you're forcing change or white-knuckling your way through some difficult transformation. It's because you're finally working with the actual system instead of against it. The manuscript lays out a precise protocol for recalibrating your internal dial, adjusting it step by step until you're naturally tuned to the unlimited prosperity frequency. And the beauty of this protocol is that it doesn't require the kind of iron discipline or extreme lifestyle changes that make most self-improvement programs feel impossible to sustain. It works with your natural psychology, with how your brain actually processes and integrates new patterns, rather than demanding you somehow become a different kind of person through sheer willpower alone. What happens is this: once you genuinely understand that your thoughts are creative forces and that your emotional patterns are broadcasting specific frequencies that the universe responds to, you start noticing these patterns in real time throughout your day. You catch yourself mid-thought when you're about to repeat an old scarcity statement. You become aware of the emotional signature you're carrying as you approach financial decisions. This awareness itself begins to interrupt the automatic loops that have been running your financial life on autopilot. And with each interruption, with each conscious choice to shift your internal frequency, you're literally rewiring neural pathways and establishing new default patterns. People who apply this protocol often report that something shifts very quickly, sometimes within the first few days. It's not usually that their bank account suddenly explodes with money, though that can happen. More often, it's a shift in their internal experience. The constant anxiety about money begins to ease. Opportunities they would have missed before suddenly become visible. Conversations lead to unexpected connections. Decisions that would have previously paralyzed them with fear now feel clear and manageable. This is the evidence that their frequency is changing, that they're beginning to tune into a different station, and that their external reality is starting to reorganize itself to match this new internal state. But here's where we encounter the second profound secret that the manuscript reveals, and this one challenges everything our action-obsessed culture has taught us about success. Money doesn't actually come to you primarily because of what you do. It comes to you because of who you are. This sounds almost too simple, maybe even lazy or irresponsible to people who've been grinding themselves into exhaustion, trying to do more, work harder, hustle longer. But this apparently simple distinction contains a truth so profound that once people really get it, their entire relationship with wealth transforms overnight. Think about this carefully. Our society is completely obsessed with action, with doing, with productivity and output and measurable effort. We worship at the altar of hustle culture, believing that if we just do enough, if we just work hard enough, if we just take enough action, eventually we'll be rewarded with abundance. And yet, when you look around, you'll notice something strange. People who experience sustainable abundance, the kind that doesn't require constant struggle to maintain, aren't necessarily doing things that are fundamentally different from what you're doing. They're not working longer hours. They're often working fewer hours. They're not employing some secret strategy you don't have access to. The real difference is that they are being a different version of themselves. Their internal state of being, their fundamental identity, their unconscious self-concept. These are aligned with prosperity rather than struggle. They don't have to try to act confident about money, because at the identity level, they are someone for whom financial flow is natural. They don't have to force themselves to see opportunities, because their internal programming automatically scans for and recognizes possibilities rather than problems. They don't have to fight against self-sabotage, because their subconscious identity supports wealth rather than undermining it. Now, I want to go even deeper into this distinction between doing and being, because it's the key that unlocks everything else. Most of us have been trained to believe that we must first do the right things, accumulate the right achievements, check off the right boxes, and then maybe, eventually, we'll become the kind of person who deserves or can sustain wealth. But that's completely backwards. The transformation happens when you shift your identity first, when you reprogram who you are at the deepest subconscious level, and then the actions you take naturally flow from that new identity and generate completely different results. Type, "I am transforming my identity" in the comments if you're beginning to see how your sense of self might be the real factor determining your financial outcomes. The manuscript uses a perfect analogy to illustrate this principle, and once you hear it, you'll never look at your financial situation the same way again. Imagine you're trying to grow apples. You've got this vision of beautiful, delicious apples hanging from the branches of your tree. You're committed to making this happen, so you do everything right. You fertilize the soil meticulously. You water consistently. You protect the tree from pests and harsh weather. You give it optimal sunlight. You're doing all the correct actions according to every gardening manual you've read. But here's the problem: you planted orange seeds. No matter how much effort you pour into nurturing that tree, no matter how perfect your technique or how dedicated your care, it will never produce apples. It's literally impossible because the tree's DNA, its fundamental nature, its core programming, is designed to produce oranges. You're not doing anything wrong with your actions. Your actions are actually excellent, but they're being applied to the wrong foundation, and so they can never generate the results you're seeking. This is exactly what's happening in your financial life if your inner identity is programmed for scarcity. You can learn all the right strategies, take all the recommended actions, work incredibly hard, make smart decisions, and all your efforts will only produce more scarcity experiences because that's what your identity programming is designed to create. The actions themselves aren't the problem. The foundation those actions are built upon is the problem. You're trying to harvest apples from a tree whose essential nature can only produce oranges. The transformation that changes everything is when you go back to the seed level, to the identity level, to the core programming that determines what kind of tree you're growing in the first place. When you reprogram your subconscious identity from someone who struggles with money to someone for whom abundance flows naturally, suddenly the same actions you were taking before begin producing completely different results. Or more accurately, you naturally begin taking different actions without having to force yourself because those actions flow organically from your new identity. And this brings us to perhaps the most crucial understanding of all, the insight that explains why so many intelligent, hardworking people remain financially stuck despite their best conscious efforts. Modern neuroscience has revealed something absolutely stunning about how your mind actually operates. Up to 95% of your daily decisions are made by your subconscious mind, not your conscious mind. Think about what that means. 95%. That means only about 5% of your choices, behaviors, and responses are coming from your conscious awareness and deliberate thinking. The rest, the vast majority, is being run by subconscious programs that were installed primarily during your childhood, during moments of emotional intensity, through repetition and conditioning from authority figures, and through experiences that created lasting impressions on your developing psyche. These programs run automatically beneath your conscious awareness, driving your decisions, filtering your perceptions, determining your emotional responses, and ultimately creating the patterns of results you experience in your life. So you can sit down with the best intentions in the world and create brilliant financial strategies in your conscious mind. You can set clear goals, make detailed plans, commit yourself fully to changing your financial situation. You can have access to the best advice, the most sophisticated investment knowledge, the perfect business opportunity. But if your subconscious programming is aligned with scarcity, lack, unworthiness, or fear around money, you will constantly and consistently sabotage your own progress without even realizing you're doing it. The sabotage doesn't look dramatic or obvious. It's subtle, insidious, disguised as logic or reasonable caution. You'll find yourself making decisions that seem perfectly rational in the moment, but that consistently steer you away from prosperity. You'll miss opportunities because something made you hesitate at the crucial moment. You'll create problems or drama that distract you just when you're on the verge of a breakthrough. You'll unconsciously align yourself with people or situations that reinforce your limitations rather than expand your possibilities. Now, I want to go even deeper into understanding these specific sabotage patterns, because once you can recognize them operating in your own life, you gain the power to interrupt them. The manuscript identifies several primary ways that subconscious programming undermines financial success, and when people first encounter these descriptions, they often experience that uncomfortable shock of recognition. That moment of realizing, oh my God, that's exactly what I've been doing. Comment, I see my patterns now. If you're starting to recognize how your subconscious might have been quietly sabotaging your financial progress all along. The first sabotage pattern that keeps people trapped is perhaps the most heartbreaking because it operates so quietly, so invisibly, that most people live their entire lives never recognizing it's there. It's the deep subconscious belief that you don't deserve exceptional abundance. Not that you don't want it or don't wish you had it, but that at a fundamental level, there's something about you that makes you unworthy of extraordinary wealth. This belief might have been installed when you were a child and saw your parents struggle, and unconsciously decided that struggling was just what people like you do. Or maybe you made some mistake in your past and on some deep level sentenced yourself to financial limitation as punishment. Whatever the origin, this unworthiness programming acts like an invisible force field that repels abundance even when it's trying to reach you. The second pattern is the unconscious association between wealth and negativity. You might consciously say you want to be rich, but if your subconscious has linked being wealthy with being greedy, selfish, corrupt, or disconnected from what really matters, then you'll unconsciously sabotage any movement towards significant wealth because your identity can't reconcile being prosperous with being a good person. You've probably heard messages throughout your life that created these associations. Rich people are greedy. Money is the root of all evil. The wealthy exploit others. You can't be spiritual and wealthy. These statements, repeated enough times, create unconscious programming that makes you choose poverty over prosperity because poverty feels morally safe. The third pattern is what the manuscript calls the financial glass ceiling, and this one is fascinating because it explains why so many people seem to reach a certain level of income and then just stall there, unable to break through to the next tier, no matter what they try. Your subconscious mind establishes an invisible limit based on your reference models, the people you grew up around, the examples of financial success you witnessed in your formative years. If nobody in your family or community ever earned more than a certain amount, your subconscious sets that as the maximum allowed level for you. Going beyond it feels dangerous, foreign, like you'd be abandoning your tribe or betraying your roots. So even as you consciously pursue greater wealth, your subconscious finds ways to keep you safely beneath that invisible ceiling. The fourth pattern might be the strangest, but it's also remarkably common once you know to look for it. It's an addiction to financial drama. Some people have so deeply incorporated the identity of struggler, of fighter, of someone who overcomes obstacles, that they paradoxically feel uncomfortable when things begin to flow easily. Their entire sense of self is wrapped up in being the person who works hard against the odds, who survives despite challenges, who battles their way through life. When money starts coming easily, when opportunities appear without struggle, something in them feels wrong, like they're losing their identity. So they unconsciously create new problems, new crises, new drama to reaffirm who they believe they are. These patterns are operating right now in your life if you've been working hard without seeing proportional financial results. And the crucial insight is that you can't overcome these patterns through more effort, more discipline, or more willpower. They're subconscious programs, which means they're below the level of conscious control. Trying to overpower them with conscious effort is like trying to change your heartbeat through sheer determination. It doesn't work that way. What does work is reprogramming at the subconscious level, installing new patterns that support abundance rather than sabotage it. For me personally, the breakthrough moment came when I finally recognized that despite all my correct actions in the external world, all my smart strategies and dedicated work, I was still operating from a vibrational frequency of scarcity. I could feel it so clearly once I knew to look for it. That subtle anxiety that would arise whenever I checked my bank account, even when the numbers were fine. That tension in my body when paying bills, like I was giving away something precious that might not return. That constant low-grade fear that everything I'd built could collapse at any moment. That I was just one mistake or one unlucky breakaway from losing it all. These weren't just random anxieties. They were the emotional signature of scarcity consciousness. And that signature was broadcasting constantly, telling the universe, I don't have enough. I'm afraid of losing what I have. Abundance isn't safe for me. No wonder my financial reality kept reflecting those frequencies back to me, no matter how much I tried to force different results through external action. Now, I want to go even deeper into what happens when you finally interrupt these patterns and begin the genuine work of reprogramming your subconscious for abundance. Because this is where everything shifts, where the intellectual understanding becomes embodied transformation, where theory becomes lived experience that actually changes your relationship with money from the inside out. Share in the comments, I'm breaking through, if this description of subconscious sabotage is resonating with your own experience. The fundamental principle that governs this entire system, the law that determines whether you experience abundance or scarcity regardless of your conscious desires, is both simple and profound. The universe responds to your vibrational frequency, not to your superficial wants or stated goals. You can consciously say, I want to be wealthy 1,000 times a day, create vision boards, set ambitious financial goals, and work yourself into exhaustion pursuing those goals. But if your deepest vibrational state, the energetic signal you're constantly transmitting through the combination of your habitual thoughts, your recurring emotions, and your fundamental beliefs, is broadcasting scarcity and fear, then that's what the universe will reflect back to you with absolute precision. Think of yourself as a radio tower constantly broadcasting a signal. This signal isn't determined by what you say out loud or what you consciously think you want. It's determined by your actual energetic state, the frequency that emerges from the depths of your subconscious programming. And the universe, which doesn't judge you or question your signal, simply tunes into whatever frequency you're broadcasting and delivers experiences that match it perfectly. If you're broadcasting lack, you receive experiences of lack. If you're broadcasting fear of loss, you receive situations that confirm there's something to fear. If you're broadcasting unworthiness, opportunities pass you by because you're literally invisible to them at your current frequency. This is why positive thinking alone doesn't work. You can paste affirmations all over your mirror and repeat them dutifully every morning. But if your underlying frequency hasn't changed, if you're still carrying that anxiety in your nervous system, that tension in your body, that subtle voice in your head saying, "This won't work for me," then your affirmations are just noise on top of a much stronger signal broadcasting the opposite message. The manuscript uses another brilliant analogy that made this concept click for so many people, and once you hear it, you'll understand exactly why your financial situation keeps returning to the same level no matter what you try to do differently. Your financial life operates like a thermostat. You know how a thermostat works. You set it to a specific temperature, and no matter what happens, the system automatically adjusts to maintain that setting. If the room gets too hot, the air conditioning kicks in to cool it down. If it gets too cold, the heating activates to warm it back up. The thermostat is constantly monitoring and making adjustments to return to its programmed temperature. Your subconscious mind has a financial thermostat set to a specific level of wealth that feels safe, familiar, and aligned with your identity. No matter how much you temporarily increase your income through a new job, a salary raise, a business, success, or even a windfall, if that new level exceeds your thermostat setting, your subconscious will automatically activate mechanisms to bring you back down to your programmed level. This is why lottery winners often end up broke within a few years. It's why people who get significant raises somehow find that their expenses mysteriously increase to match their new income. It's why business owners sabotage themselves just when they're on the verge of breaking through to the next level. The thermostat is doing its job, maintaining the temperature it's been programmed to maintain. The problem isn't that the thermostat is broken or that you're doing something wrong. The problem is that the setting is wrong. You're trying to heat the room through external means, temporary boosts that create temporary increases in temperature, but the thermostat keeps pulling everything back to the original setting because that's what it's designed to do. The key to sustainable financial transformation isn't finding ways to temporarily increase your income or assets. That's just heating the room, and the thermostat will always correct back to its setting. The key is reprogramming the thermostat itself, adjusting your internal controls to a new setting that matches the level of abundance you consciously desire. When you successfully reprogram your financial thermostat, you don't have to force or struggle to maintain wealth. Your subconscious automatically works to maintain the new level just as diligently as it previously worked to maintain the old level. Now, I want to go even deeper into the specific mechanics of how this reprogramming actually happens, because this is where most people get stuck. They understand the concept intellectually, but don't know how to translate that understanding into actual subconscious transformation. The manuscript doesn't just explain the problem, it provides a systematic method for accessing and adjusting your financial thermostat at the deepest levels, where lasting change actually occurs. Type "reprogramming my thermostat" in the comments if you're recognizing how your own internal setting has been limiting your financial growth. The reprogramming process begins with something so simple that most people dismiss its importance. Yet it's one of the most powerful tools you have for shifting your financial reality. It starts with the words you use every single day to describe your relationship with money. And I'm not talking about formal affirmations or scripted positive statements. I'm talking about the casual, automatic language that flows out of your mouth without conscious thought. The phrases that have become so habitual you don't even notice you're saying them anymore. Words aren't just sounds or symbols we use to communicate information. At a fundamental level, words are vibrational patterns with specific frequencies that create physical changes in your neurology and energetic field. Every time you speak a phrase or even think it silently, you're literally carving neural grooves in your brain, establishing patterns that become more automatic and more powerful with each repetition. You're also creating energetic signatures in your electromagnetic field that broadcast into the quantum field surrounding you, attracting experiences that resonate with those frequencies. The phrases most people use habitually when talking about money are devastating to their financial reality, yet they repeat them dozens of times day without realizing they're issuing direct commands to their subconscious mind and to the creative forces of the universe. When you say, "I can't afford it," you're not making a neutral observation about your current bank balance. You're declaring a fundamental limitation, closing a door, instructing your subconscious that this is a boundary you cannot cross. You're writing a script for your financial life that says resources are unavailable to you, that this desire is outside your reach, that you are someone who lacks rather than someone who creates. The same thing happens with phrases like, "That's too expensive for me," "I never have enough money," "Money doesn't come easily to me," or "I'm just not good with finances." These aren't descriptions of reality. They're declarations that program reality. They're commands that your subconscious takes literally and then works tirelessly to prove true. Your brain is fundamentally a problem-solving and pattern-completing machine, and when you give it a statement like, "I can't afford it," it stops looking for solutions because you've declared that no solution exists. The transformation in your financial reality can begin immediately, today, right now, simply by consciously interrupting these limiting language patterns and replacing them with expansive alternatives. And this isn't about lying to yourself or pretending you have money when you don't. It's about fundamentally shifting the energetic quality of your engagement with financial possibilities. Instead of saying, "I can't afford it," which slams the door shut on possibility, try this reformulation. How can I create the resources to acquire this if I really want it? Notice how different that feels in your body as you say it. The first statement contracts your energy, closes your perception, and triggers a stress response in your nervous system. The second statement expands your awareness, opens your perception, and activates your creative problem-solving capabilities. It's not declaring that you already have the money, it's opening the question of how you might create it, which is an entirely different energetic transaction. This simple shift from closed statements to open questions literally activates different neural pathways in your brain. When you declare, "I can't afford it," your prefrontal cortex essentially shuts down the search function. Case closed, problem unsolvable, move on. But when you ask, "How can I create the resources for this?" your brain immediately begins scanning your memory, your environment, your network, your skills, looking for answers to the question you've posed. Neurological resources that remained dormant under the old paradigm suddenly activate, making connections you couldn't see before, recognizing opportunities that were invisible to you yesterday. The manuscript provides an entire framework for linguistic reprogramming, showing you how to catch and reframe the most common limiting statements about money that most people repeat unconsciously throughout their day. And what's remarkable is how quickly this practice begins to shift your internal experience. Within days, sometimes hours, people report feeling fundamentally different about money, not because their circumstances changed, but because they're no longer continuously programming limitation through their habitual language. Now, I want to go even deeper into the neurological mechanisms behind why this linguistic shift is so powerful. Because understanding the science helps you trust the process and commit to applying it consistently even before you see external results. Your brain literally cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one when it comes to establishing neural patterns and emotional responses. Drop a comment saying, "My words create my wealth," if you're recognizing how your habitual language might have been programming limitation into your financial reality. The manuscript outlines a systematic protocol that has proven to radically transform people's relationships with money. And what's remarkable is that many people report tangible results before they even complete all 7 days. This isn't some vague self-improvement program where you're supposed to feel inspired and motivated, but never actually see real changes in your circumstances. This is a precise neurological and energetic recalibration process where each day focuses on dismantling a specific aspect of your limiting programming and replacing it with a new vibrational pattern that's aligned with abundance rather than scarcity. What makes this protocol so effective is that it works completely at the level of consciousness. You're not being asked to change anything in your external world during these 7 days. You don't need to get a new job, start a business, or make any major financial decisions. The entire transformation happens in the realm of your internal programming, yet because your external reality is always a reflection of your internal state, the effects inevitably begin manifesting in tangible ways. People notice opportunities they would have missed before. Conversations take unexpected turns that lead to financial possibilities. Resources appear from surprising sources. The outer world begins reorganizing itself to match the new frequency you're establishing within. The first day of this protocol is deceptively simple but absolutely crucial, and most people want to skip past it because it doesn't feel like you're doing anything. But this is precisely why it's so powerful. Day 1 is dedicated entirely to conscious observation, without any judgment, without trying to change anything. Precisely why it's so powerful. Day 1 is dedicated entirely to conscious observation, without any judgment, without trying to change anything, without beating yourself up for what you notice. You're simply becoming aware, bringing the spotlight of your attention to patterns that have been running automatically in the darkness of your unconscious mind. Throughout that first day, your only job is to notice your habitual language about money. Every expression that comes out of your mouth, every thought that passes through your mind, every emotional reaction that arises when money is mentioned or when you're handling financial matters. You're not trying to change these patterns yet. You're just observing them with curiosity, like a scientist studying an interesting phenomenon. When you catch yourself saying, "I can't afford that," you simply note it. When anxiety arises as you check your bank account, you notice the sensation without trying to make it go away. When you find yourself complaining about expenses or feeling resentful about bills, you observe those responses with gentle awareness. This conscious recognition is the crucial first step, because you genuinely cannot transform what you don't consciously recognize. Most of your limiting financial patterns have been operating below the threshold of your awareness for so long that they feel like just the way you are, like fundamental aspects of your personality rather than learned behaviors that can be changed. By bringing them into the light of conscious awareness, you're already beginning to loosen their grip. The patterns lose some of their automatic power simply by being seen. What people typically discover on day 1 is shocking. They had no idea how much negative, limiting language they were using about money throughout their day. They didn't realize how pervasive the anxiety and tension around finances had become, how it was coloring their mood and affecting their decisions in ways they never consciously acknowledged. This awareness itself is transformative because once you see the pattern clearly, you can never quite return to the same level of unconscious participation in it. The observation process also reveals something else that's crucial for the work ahead. You start to recognize that these thoughts and feelings aren't actually you. They're programs running in your system, patterns you absorb from your environment, but they're not your essential nature. This distinction creates space, a tiny gap between your true self and the limiting programming. And in that gap lies the possibility for genuine transformation. Now, I want to go even deeper into what happens on the subsequent days of this protocol, because each day builds systematically on the foundation established by the previous day. The progression is carefully designed to work with your psychology rather than against it, creating sustainable change rather than temporary motivation that fades after a few weeks. Day 2 begins the active reprogramming process, but it does so in a way that your nervous system can actually integrate rather than resist. Write, "I'm observing my patterns," in the comments if you're ready to begin this journey of conscious awareness around your financial programming. The manuscript reveals something that most people find almost unbearable to confront at first. Yet once you truly assimilate it at a cellular level, it instantly transforms your entire experience with prosperity. Money is nothing more than a perfect mirror that reflects your relationship with yourself, not with the external world. This isn't some abstract spiritual concept. It's a concrete mechanism that explains why two people with identical skills, education, and opportunities can have radically different financial outcomes. The difference isn't out there in the economy, the job market, or their circumstances. The fundamental difference exists in their internal relationship with themselves. Think about what this really means. Every financial limitation you're experiencing right now isn't primarily caused by external factors, though that's what it looks like on the surface. It's reflecting back to you the limitations you've placed on yourself internally, the ways you've decided, often unconsciously, that you're not worthy of more, that you don't deserve exceptional abundance, that there's something fundamentally flawed or insufficient about you that makes extraordinary wealth inappropriate or impossible for someone like you. Most people spend their entire lives trying to fix their financial problems by changing external conditions. They believe if they could just get a better job, find the right opportunity, learn the correct strategy, or work a bit harder, then finally their money situation would improve. And sometimes these external changes do create temporary improvements, but the gains rarely last because the internal mirror hasn't changed. The reflection might shift momentarily, but it always returns to match the image you're holding of yourself beneath the surface. The profound shift happens when you recognize that money is simply energy that amplifies and makes visible your self-perceived value. If you internally don't feel worthy of exceptional abundance, if deep in your subconscious you believe you're not the kind of person who deserves or can handle significant wealth, then money will faithfully reflect that self-image back to you. It will show up as financial limitation that feels frustratingly persistent no matter what you try. It will manifest as lost opportunities that slip through your fingers at the last moment for reasons you can't quite explain. It will appear as cycles of almost achievement where you get tantalizingly close to a breakthrough only to have something derail your progress right before you reach it. These aren't random occurrences or bad luck. They're your subconscious mind protecting you from receiving something that contradicts your core identity. If you believe at a deep level that you're not worthy of wealth, then actually becoming wealthy would create massive cognitive dissonance, an internal crisis of identity. So your subconscious, which is designed to keep you safe and maintain consistency with your self-concept, will sabotage your success to preserve your existing identity, even when that identity is limiting and painful. This revelation is both devastating and liberating. It's devastating because it means you can't blame external circumstances anymore. You have to take radical responsibility for the fact that your financial reality is reflecting your internal programming. But it's profoundly liberating because it means you have complete power to change your financial situation by changing your relationship with yourself. You don't need permission from the economy, from your boss, from the universe. You need to heal your relationship with yourself, to reprogram your self-perceived value, to establish a new identity that naturally aligns with the abundance you consciously desire. The transformation in your financial reality isn't just possible when you do this internal work. It becomes mathematically inevitable. When you genuinely shift your self-perception from "I'm not worthy" to "I am inherently valuable," money must respond because it's simply reflecting that shift. When you heal the wounds of self-devaluation that most of us carry from childhood, relationships, failures, and societal conditioning, abundance flows naturally because there's nothing internally blocking it anymore. Now, I want to go even deeper into the specific techniques the manuscript provides for healing this internal relationship and elevating your self-perceived value, because this is where the rubber meets the road. Understanding the principle is important, but transformation requires actually doing the work of reprogramming at the deepest levels where your sense of self-worth was originally established. The protocol includes exercises that access and rewrite these core patterns, replacing limiting self-concepts with expansive new identities that naturally attract and sustain wealth. Comment: I am worthy of abundance if you're beginning to see how your relationship with yourself has been determining your financial outcomes all along. One of the most counterintuitive yet powerful techniques the manuscript reveals completely inverts everything we've been taught about how to attract wealth. It's called the prosperous void technique, and when I first encountered it, I thought it sounded completely backwards, almost irresponsible. But once I understood the principle behind it and actually applied it, everything changed. Instead of desperately pursuing prosperity, chasing after opportunities, hustling and grinding to force abundance into your life, this technique teaches you to consciously create an energetic space, i.e., receptive void that abundance can naturally fill without effort or struggle. The principle behind this is rooted in one of nature's fundamental laws. Nature abhors a vacuum and will automatically seek to fill it. When you create genuine space in your energetic field, when you stop pushing and grasping and desperately trying to capture wealth, you establish a magnetic pull that draws abundance toward you naturally. It's the profound difference between chasing someone who's running away from you, which only makes them run faster, versus creating a space so attractive, so inviting, so aligned with what they're seeking that they naturally gravitate toward you without any pursuit necessary. Most people approach wealth from a place of desperate pursuit. They're constantly chasing, strategizing, forcing, trying to make things happen through sheer willpower and relentless effort. And paradoxically, this very energy of desperate pursuit creates the perfect vibrational context for abundance to continue eluding them. Think about it. When you're chasing something desperately, what are you unconsciously declaring? That you don't have it, that it's separate from you, that you're in a state of lack. And that energetic signature of lack is precisely what your subconscious mind and the quantum field respond to, manifesting more experiences of not having, more situations that require desperate pursuit. The prosperous void technique flips this entire dynamic. You deliberately create internal space, releasing the tight grip of control, surrendering the exhausting energy of pursuit, and establishing a receptive openness that allows abundance to flow to you rather than away from you. This doesn't mean becoming passive or giving up on your goals. It means shifting from pursuit energy to receptivity energy, from grasping to allowing, from forcing to attracting. This leads directly to the third fundamental law that the manuscript reveals. And this one might be the most challenging for people raised in hustle culture to accept. Money flows toward those who know how to receive it, not toward those who struggle and fight to get it. This law directly challenges the effort-reward paradigm that's been drilled into our heads since childhood. The belief that wealth is proportional to how hard you work, how much you sacrifice, how intensely you struggle against obstacles. But here's what the manuscript exposes with devastating clarity. Effort and struggle generate a vibrational frequency of resistance that literally repels abundance instead of attracting it. When you're in a constant state of struggle, grinding yourself into exhaustion, fighting against circumstances, working from fear and desperation, you're emitting the energetic frequency of "I don't have" and "I desperately need." And the universe, which responds to frequency rather than effort, interprets that signal as a declaration of lack that must be maintained. Think about the wealthiest people you know or have observed. Really think about their energy. Are they in constant struggle mode, anxiously fighting for every dollar? Or do they have a quality of ease, of receptivity, of expecting abundance to flow naturally? Most genuinely wealthy people, not lottery winners or those riding temporary success, but people with sustainable abundance, operate from a fundamentally different energetic state. They're receivers, not fighters. They've learned, often unconsciously, how to create that prosperous void, that receptive space that wealth naturally fills. The transformation happens when you shift your identity from someone who must struggle for wealth to someone who naturally receives it. This isn't about being lazy or entitled. It's about recognizing that your worthiness isn't something you earn through suffering. It's something inherent that you learn to accept. It's about understanding that the universe responds to your vibrational state, not to your effort level, and that struggle itself is often the very thing preventing abundance from reaching you. Now, I want to go even deeper into what this receptivity actually looks like in practical application, because most people confuse receptivity with passivity, and they're completely different states. True receptivity is an active, energetic stance, a deliberate opening, a conscious alignment with the flow of abundance, rather than a passive waiting for something to happen to you. Put "I receive abundance naturally" in the comments if this shift from struggle to receptivity is beginning to make sense to you. The manuscript uses a perfect analogy to illustrate the difference between struggling for wealth and aligning with it. Imagine two people trying to cross a body of water. The first person is rowing a boat using pure muscular effort to fight against the current. He's working incredibly hard, sweating, exhausting himself, putting in maximum effort with every stroke. He's doing everything he's been told to do. Work hard, push. Through resistance, never give up. And he is making progress, but it's slow, exhausting, and unsustainable. The moment he stops rowing, he starts drifting backward. The second person is sailing. She's learned to read the wind and currents, to align her sails with forces far more powerful than her individual muscular strength. She's not working harder. She's working smarter, or more accurately, she's allowing natural forces to do most of the work while she simply navigates and adjusts. She harnesses the wind, rides the currents, and moves across the water with a fraction of the effort, while often achieving better results than the exhausted rower. This is the exact difference between struggling for wealth and developing what the manuscript calls financial navigation. The rower represents how most people approach prosperity: pure effort, constant struggle, fighting against resistance, exhausting themselves while making painfully slow progress. The sailor represents those who've learned to tune into the natural currents of abundance that have always been flowing, always been available, just waiting for someone to align with them rather than fight against them. The tools the manuscript provides are essentially teaching you to become a financial sailor instead of a financial rower. You're learning to recognize where the abundance currents are flowing, how to position yourself to receive them, how to adjust your sails to catch the wind instead of trying to create forward motion through sheer force of will. And the remarkable thing is that once you make this shift, wealth begins flowing with an ease that makes your previous struggle seem almost absurd in retrospect. One of the most powerful practices for developing this receptivity is what the manuscript calls the abundant receptivity meditation. This is fundamentally different from traditional visualization techniques that most people have tried and found ineffective. Those typical manifestation practices usually have you visualizing what you want, imagining yourself receiving wealth, picturing your goals as if they're in the future waiting for you to arrive. And the problem with that approach is that it continuously reinforces the energetic state of not having, of desiring something that's separate from you, of waiting for abundance to arrive someday. The abundant receptivity meditation works from a completely different premise. Instead of focusing on what you want to receive in the future, this practice guides you to enter the vibrational state of having already received it. You're not asking the universe for prosperity, begging for abundance, or hoping wealth will come to you. You're tuning your entire nervous system, your emotional body, your energetic field to the exact frequency of someone who already lives in abundance, who already experiences wealth as their natural state, who already embodies the consciousness of prosperity. This subtle shift in the meditation practice creates fundamental transformation in your vibrational field because you're not reinforcing lack while pretending to pursue abundance. You're actually installing the neurological patterns, the emotional signatures, the energetic codes of someone who is already prosperous. Your subconscious mind, which doesn't distinguish between vividly imagined experience and actual experience, begins wiring itself according to this new pattern. Your nervous system starts carrying the relaxed confidence of someone who knows abundance is always available rather than the tension of someone constantly worried about scarcity. The practice involves entering a deeply relaxed state and then systematically engaging all your senses to experience what it actually feels like to live in abundance right now, not in some imagined future. What does financial security feel like in your body? What's the quality of your breath when you're not worried about money? What thoughts move through your mind naturally when you're someone for whom wealth flows easily? How do you carry yourself, make decisions, interact with opportunities when you're operating from abundance consciousness rather than scarcity consciousness? Now, I want to go even deeper into the specific mechanics of this meditation practice because the way you do it matters tremendously. Most people approach meditation from their anxious, seeking mind, which actually reinforces the problem. The manuscript teaches you to enter this practice from a place of already being complete, already being whole, already being abundant at the consciousness level, even if your bank account doesn't reflect it yet. Write, "I embody abundance now," in the comments, if you're ready to shift from seeking to receiving, from struggling to allowing. One of the most liberating revelations the manuscript provides is its complete dismantling of the hard work mythology that's been used to keep people trapped in endless struggle. We've been conditioned to believe that wealth requires sacrifice, that prosperity demands exhaustion, that the path to abundance is paved with suffering and deprivation. And this belief system serves a specific purpose. It keeps people grinding away in ways that actually prevent them from ever achieving the financial freedom they're working toward. The manuscript exposes a crucial distinction that changes everything: the difference between hard work and aligned effort. Hard work, as it's traditionally understood and glorified in our culture, implies struggle, resistance, force, and fighting against natural currents. It's like swimming against a powerful tide, using every ounce of your strength just to avoid being swept backward, exhausting yourself while making minimal progress. You might eventually reach your destination, but you'll be depleted, burned out, and the journey will have cost you far more than it needed to. Aligned effort is something entirely different. It's working from a place of natural resonance with your unique gifts, your authentic strengths, your genuine passions, while simultaneously riding the favorable energetic currents that are already flowing in directions that serve your goals. It's like swimming with the current instead of against it. Each stroke takes you exponentially farther with a fraction of the energy expenditure. You're still moving, still taking action, but the quality of that action is fundamentally different because it's supported by forces larger than your individual will. What's revolutionary about this understanding is that it liberates you from the false virtue of suffering. You don't need to prove your worthiness through struggle. You don't need to earn abundance through exhaustion. The people who experience sustainable wealth aren't those who worked hardest in the grinding, depleting sense. They're people who found their zone of aligned effort, that sweet spot where their natural talents meet market needs, where their authentic expression creates value that others want to exchange resources for. The transformation happens when you release the belief that struggle equals virtue and begin orienting yourself toward alignment instead of force. And the manuscript provides a specific practice for establishing this alignment at the deepest neurological level. It's called the millionaire meditation technique, and it's designed to actively reprogram your subconscious mind to naturally align with the abundance frequency without you having to consciously think about it or force it. This technique works by combining rhythmic breathing patterns that literally alter your biochemistry and elevate your brain frequency into states where your subconscious becomes extraordinarily receptive to new programming. When you're in these elevated brain states, specifically alpha and theta waves, the critical factor that normally guards your subconscious and rejects information that contradicts your existing beliefs essentially goes offline. This creates a window of profound receptivity where you can install new patterns without the usual resistance your conscious mind would generate. The practice guides you through specific visualizations and sensory impressions that aren't just imagining prosperity, but actually experiencing it as if it's already fully manifested in your present reality. You're not picturing yourself being wealthy someday in the future. You're living it right now in this meditation, engaging every sense, every emotion, every aspect of your consciousness in the experience of already being someone for whom abundance is natural, normal, and effortless. What's happening neurologically during this practice is extraordinary. Your brain is literally installing new neural wiring, creating pathways that didn't exist before, establishing patterns that will begin operating automatically once they're sufficiently strengthened through repetition. Modern neuroscience has validated what the manuscript has been teaching for over a century. Your brain doesn't fundamentally distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and an actual lived experience when it comes to creating neural patterns and emotional associations. So when you practice the millionaire meditation consistently, you're essentially giving your brain the lived experience of being abundant, of having wealth, of operating from prosperity consciousness. And after enough repetitions, your subconscious accepts this as your new normal, your new identity, your new default state. Then your external behaviors, decisions, perceptions, and actions naturally begin flowing from this new programming without you having to consciously think about it. Now, I want to go even deeper into the specific breathing pattern that makes this meditation so powerful, because the breath is the bridge between your conscious and subconscious mind, and when you learn to use it deliberately, you gain access to reprogramming capabilities that most people never discover. Drop a comment saying "installing prosperity consciousness" if you're ready to move beyond struggle and into aligned abundance. The proof of these principles isn't just theoretical. It's in the lives of real people who applied this knowledge and experienced transformations that seemed almost impossible given their starting circumstances. Maria's story perfectly illustrates how profound these shifts can be. She was working as an administrative assistant, the same job she'd held for over a decade, making the same modest salary year after year. She wasn't lazy or incompetent. She was actually excellent at her work, but she had this invisible ceiling that kept her income frozen at a certain level. After applying the principles from the manuscript for just 6 months, her income doubled. But here's what's remarkable. She didn't change jobs. She didn't get some unexpected promotion handed to her. What changed was the place from which she was making decisions. She began valuing her skills in a completely new way, seeing herself as someone whose contributions were genuinely valuable rather than someone who should just be grateful to have a job. From that new internal position, she naturally began advocating for herself, asking for the salary review she'd been too afraid to request, accepting the additional responsibilities her boss offered because she no longer felt like she'd fail. The transformation wasn't in her external circumstances initially, it was in her internal relationship with her own value. And once that shifted, the external reality had no choice but to reorganize itself to match. Her doubled income wasn't the cause of her transformation. It was the effect, the natural consequence of her evolved self-perception finally being reflected in her material world. Carlos had a different but equally revealing pattern. He was an entrepreneur with what I call the classic almost success syndrome. He would launch projects with genuine potential, work incredibly hard, generate initial momentum and excitement, and then right when things should have taken off, something would derail everything. This happened 3 times in a row, each failure more devastating than the last, until he was on the verge of giving up entirely and accepting that entrepreneurship just wasn't for him. Then he discovered these principles and recognized something shocking about himself. His subconscious identity was programmed as a struggler, not as someone who succeeds. His sense of self, his internal narrative about who he was, required struggle to feel valid, to feel like he was working hard enough, to feel worthy of respect. Success, actual sustained success, felt foreign to his nervous system, almost dangerous to his identity. So his subconscious would find ways to sabotage his progress right before breakthrough, because the breakthrough would have contradicted his core programming. Once Carlos recognized this pattern and began the work of recalibrating his identity from "I'm someone who struggles" to "I'm someone for whom success flows naturally," everything changed. His next project didn't just succeed, it generated 7 times his previous highest income. The difference wasn't in his business strategy or market conditions. The difference was that he'd reprogrammed his subconscious to allow success rather than unconsciously sabotage it. These stories reveal the third profound secret that the manuscript teaches, and this one completely inverts how most people think about wealth and personal development. Money is not the final goal, not the thing you're ultimately pursuing. It's a natural byproduct of your personal evolution, an external reflection of your internal growth. Most people have this equation completely backwards. They believe they must first accumulate money, and then with that money, they'll finally have the freedom, resources, and security to evolve as individuals, to develop themselves, to become who they're meant to be. But that sequence is inverted, which is precisely why it never works. True sustainable prosperity is always an external reflection of your internal evolution level. It's not something you pursue directly, but something that manifests naturally, automatically, inevitably when you commit to your own growth, to expanding beyond your current limitations, to becoming a fuller expression of your authentic potential. When you focus on accumulating money as the primary goal, you're operating from the frequency of lack, constantly reinforcing the belief that you don't currently have enough, that you need to get something external before you can be complete. But when you focus on your own evolution, on healing your wounds, on expanding your consciousness, on developing your gifts, on becoming more aligned with your true nature, abundance becomes the natural consequence rather than the elusive goal you're chasing. Now, I want to go even deeper into what this personal evolution actually looks like in practice, because it's not some vague spiritual concept. It's concrete, measurable transformation in how you think, feel, decide, and act in your daily life. And the manuscript provides specific markers you can use to track your progress. Write, "Evolution creates wealth," in the comments if this paradigm shift is landing for you. The manuscript provides a deceptively simple practice that combines neurological recalibration with energetic reprogramming. And when people apply it consistently, they're often shocked by how quickly their internal experience of money begins to shift. It's called prosperity breathing, and it works by simultaneously activating your parasympathetic nervous system, which governs your rest and restoration responses, while recalibrating the vibrational frequency you're broadcasting about abundance. The technique itself takes less than 5 minutes and can be done anywhere you have a moment of privacy and quiet. You begin by finding a comfortable position, placing one hand over your heart. and the other over your abdomen so you can feel the rhythm of your breath. Then you engage a specific breathing pattern that's been used for centuries to alter consciousness states. Inhale slowly through your nose for a count of 4 seconds. Hold that breath for 7 seconds, then exhale completely through your mouth for 8 seconds. This particular rhythm isn't arbitrary. The extended exhale activates your vagus nerve, which signals your entire nervous system to shift out of fight or flight, stress mode, and into a state of calm receptivity. In this state, your subconscious becomes more accessible, more open to new programming, less defended by the critical factor that normally rejects information contradicting your existing beliefs. But the breathing pattern is only half of the practice. While you're breathing in this rhythm, you're simultaneously engaging your imagination in a very specific way. As you inhale, you visualize breathing in golden light, the pure essence of universal abundance flowing into your lungs and then spreading throughout your entire body. You feel this light filling every cell, every organ, every system with the energetic signature of prosperity. You're not just imagining it abstractly, you're experiencing it sensorially, feeling the warmth, seeing the glow, sensing the vibration of abundance saturating your being. Then as you exhale, you're consciously releasing all the dark, heavy, limiting patterns you've been carrying. You visualize these old programs, these scarcity beliefs, these fear-based patterns, leaving your body as dark smoke or heavy energy that dissolves into nothingness as it exits. With each breath cycle, you're literally installing abundance consciousness while removing limitation consciousness, creating space for the new by releasing the old. The manuscript specifies that this practice, when done consistently for 21 days, can literally rewrite the neural patterns in your brain related to money. 21 days is significant because that's approximately how long it takes for new neural pathways to become established through repetition, for new patterns to move from conscious effort into automatic programming. People who complete this 21-day protocol report that their relationship with money feels fundamentally different, that the anxiety and tension they used to carry has been replaced by a calm confidence they can't quite explain. This brings us to the ultimate truth that the manuscript reveals, the foundation upon which all the other principles rest. Abundance is not something that will arrive in your future when conditions are finally right. Abundance is available right now, in this present moment, regardless of what your current circumstances look like. The transformation that changes everything is when you stop postponing your experience of abundance until some external milestone is reached, and instead consciously choose to cultivate the emotional states of abundance, fullness, and gratitude right now. The universe doesn't respond to your desires, your wishes, your goals, or your plans. It responds exclusively to your dominant vibrational frequency, to the energetic signal you're broadcasting through your emotional state, your beliefs, your habitual thought patterns. If you're constantly in a state of "I'll be abundant when," you're broadcasting lack, postponement, future orientation, rather than present abundance. And the universe can only give you more of what you're currently vibrating, which means more waiting, more lack, more future orientation. By consciously choosing to inhabit the vibrational state of abundance right now, regardless of your bank balance, regardless of your debts, regardless of your current financial circumstances, you establish the frequency that naturally attracts resonant experiences of prosperity. This isn't delusion or denial. It's understanding that your emotional state creates your vibrational frequency, and your frequency determines what you attract and perceive. Now, I want to go even deeper into how you actually make this shift from future-oriented abundance to present-moment abundance, because this is where most people get stuck. thinking it means lying to themselves about their current reality, when it actually means something far more profound and powerful. Comment, "My abundance is now," if you're ready to stop postponing prosperity and start embodying it in this present moment. If you've stayed with me through this entire journey, you're clearly someone who's serious about transformation, someone who recognizes that real change requires more than surface-level tips and quick fixes. The fact that you're still here tells me you're ready for something deeper, something that actually works at the level where lasting change occurs. And honestly, that's the kind of person I love creating content for. This channel exists for people like you, people who are done with the struggle, who sense there's a better way, who are willing to question everything they've been taught about money and prosperity. If that resonates with you, go ahead and subscribe so we can continue this exploration together. There's so much more to uncover about how consciousness shapes reality, how your subconscious creates your experience, and how you can deliberately redesign your relationship with abundance. I'd also love to know you made it all the way through. Drop a comment saying, "This message was meant for me," so I can see who's really committed to this transformation. It helps me understand who I'm talking to and what kind of content serves you best. And if something I shared today created that spark of recognition, that moment where things suddenly made sense in a new way, let me know by hitting that like button. It's not just about the algorithm, it's about the connection we're building here, the community of people who are consciously creating their reality rather than unconsciously repeating old patterns. There's a video right here that goes even deeper into the practical application of these principles, showing you exactly how to implement the techniques we've discussed today. Click and continue with me over there, because what you've learned here is just the beginning of what's possible when you truly understand